Alright, look at that, another beautiful Sunday morning here in North Carolina. Gotcha. Alright, good morning everybody. Good to have you back here at the Potter's Hand Ministries. As we saw last week, that our sins will eventually find us out, and I'll leave a link in the description where you can see that. Again, you see part 1, we start Jeremiah chapter 41. Part 2 was last week, and then we'll finish the chapter today. So anyway, let's get back to the lesson here. We're going to see that Johanan finds out about Ishmael and his treacherous murder, and so now he's a man on a mission.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it.
So Johanan pursues Ishmael and eventually overtakes him by the pool of Gibeon, which we can read about in 2 Samuel 2:13. And upon seeing such a force against him, Ishmael's heart sinks. Now that he's somewhat equally matched, right? But he wants no part of it, turns tail, and he escapes.
Nope.
And so the most, gotta love living next to the Blue Ridge Parkway. Anyway, the most cruel are often the most cowardly. Case in point, let's, of course, we see Adolf Hitler, who, rather than being captured by the Allies, took his own life towards the end of World War II. Alright, now notice, let's look at verses 13 and 14. Now it came to pass that when all the people which were with Ishmael saw Johanan, the son of Kareah, and all the captains of the forces that were gathered with him, then they were glad. So all the people that Ishmael had carried away captive from Mizpah cast about, returned, and went unto Johanan, the son of Kareah. And so we see verses 13 and 14, the reaction of the captives here. They were glad. And so, looking upon Johanan and his captains as their deliverers, as we see in verse 13, and they immediately found a way to turn around and come back over to them. And so they see their captives, or their deliverers, in Johanan and his force, and so they immediately find a way to go towards them. And so notice the captives didn't wait until their captors were beaten. Instead, took the first opportunity they had to make their escape. And as soon as they saw their friends, they said, "Hey, here's our deliverers. Let's go towards them." And so that's exactly what they did. Then Ishmael didn't chase after them, as we see. Ishmael didn't go after them. He let them go. So in order to save his own life, and we see that he'll escape with 8 men. Let's go ahead and look at verse 15 here. But Ishmael, the son of Nethaniah, escaped from Johanan with 8 men and went to the Ammonites. And so we see that he, again, took off and escaped the wrath of Johanan, as it were. So it seems that 2 of his men, spoken of in verse 1, if you guys want to go back and read that, you can. But we see that, remember, he started with 10, and 8 have escaped with him. And so we see that 2 of his men, spoken of in verse 1, either deserted him or were killed in an engagement of some sort. Either way, Ishmael made his way back to the Ammonites as a perfect renegade that had abandoned all relation to the Commonwealth of Israel, though he was of the royal seed, and we will hear no more of him. So he turns tail, he escapes, and that's it. That's all we hear of him. And so now Johanan appears as a hero to the people. And they make him their leader. And so one thing we notice, however, as gentle and meek and quiet, as a gentle, meek, and quiet spirit that Gedaliah was, Johanan is quite the opposite in seeing he being a fierce and restless spirit, and he will actually do more harm than good, as we will see. And so even though the people thought themselves redeemed, right? Again, they've had the force come in. They've had the drought, the famine, all that. They've had the judgment of the Chaldeans come in. So this remnant thought that they were redeemed and everything had passed away. And so we'll see that God wasn't done with them quite yet, and He still walked contrary to them. They were not out of the woods just yet. So let's go ahead and look at verse 17. All right, verse 17 says, "And they departed and dwelt in the habitation of Hiram, which is by Bethlehem, to go to enter into Egypt." And so instead of going with Ishmael to the land of the Ammonites, they instead went with Johanan into Egypt. Notice that they abode, or they encamped, for a time in the habitation of Hiram, the son of Barzillai, which, though it returned to David's family at the year of Jubilee, still bore that same name of Hiram. Here's where Johanan sets up his headquarters, his HQ, steering his cause towards Egypt. Now, we have two reasons that he might do that. Because, first of all, because of a personal affection towards that country, or second of all, because of an ancient natural confidence in the Egyptians to help in distress. And so he's wanting to go back there for reasons. And so those are two. There could be more, but those are the two that, as I was studying, as we found out. So why would he want to go back to Egypt? Why would he want to return to a place his ancestors had worked so hard to escape from? Remember back in Moses, Moses led the people with, of course, guided by God. They made their way out of Egypt. So why would they want to go back to that country? So the answer is frivolous. And so let's look at verse 18. "Because of the Chaldeans, for they were afraid of them, because Ishmael the son of Nethaniah had slain Gedaliah the son of Achim, whom the king of Babylon made governor in the land." And because the Chaldeans, they were afraid of them. They were afraid of the Chaldeans. Why would they be afraid? Wait a minute, because we see that the Chaldeans and the Jews, they're getting along here. Even the Chaldeans made one of the Jews, Gedaliah, the sort of go-between between them and the Jews, and so it seems like they were getting along pretty well. And so why would they do that? Why would they fear the Chaldeans? They were afraid because Ishmael had killed Gedaliah. That doesn't make any sense. It's not their fault, right? So, but you see, yes, the Chaldeans had a cause enough to to resent the murder of their appointed guy, as in Gedaliah. Yet they were not so unreasonable or unjust as to revenge it upon those who appeared so vigorously against their murderers. And so we can see that, I believe, at least just in my personal opinion and in my study, that had Johanan went to the Chaldeans, right, and told them, hey, what had happened, and just say, hey, this wasn't us, and whatnot, that perhaps the Chaldeans would have revenged the death of Gedaliah and warred with the Amorites. And so, but alas, we'll never know, because that's not what happened. Here we see the Jews pretend to be afraid, and they use that as an excuse to flee back to Egypt. And so this isn't by accident. Again, there are no accidents, there are no coincidences with God. And so we see, as we'll see in the next chapter, that Jeremiah warns the remnant and divine punishment is pronounced. They may think they're safe, okay? But God has other plans, and that's usually the way it works. With when sinners, they do something and they think they're safe, but all of a sudden it's found out. Again, God has other plans, but we'll get into that next chapter. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me this morning on this beautiful Sunday morning here in Haywood County. Again, if you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. be sure to subscribe, share this video. We might be under quarantine, but we can still spread the gospel and the good word of Christ. So that's it for this lesson. I will see you guys next time.